bless me now, my Savior. I come to thee. I come to thee.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. Good evening. I am just so thrilled and excited to be able to share with you. Thrilled and excited because I get to share with you my journey. And to be quite honest, I had written something completely different for a TED Talk, but here we go. I have been so blessed to grace some of the world's most amazing stages, yet one's audience is typically unaware of all the heartache and heartbreaks, the triumphs, the setbacks, and setups it takes to get to where one endeavors to go, and rightfully so. But what I am certain of is that I have always had this beautiful dream about where I wanted my life to go, and I'm so thankful for that. You know, we have all got monsters under our bed, and we choose not to liberate ourselves by letting those monsters and the fear, shame, and powerlessness associated with them permeate our being. And what I know for sure is that when I conquered my monsters, it was the time that I was certain that I was flying. So tonight, here's to us all conquering, synthesizing, and confronting our monsters. What's under our bed? And how are those monsters holding us back? Only 3 bottles of Perrier-Jouet Grand Brut champagne were harmed during the writing of this TED Talk. Big Mama and Mama. Right now, you're looking at a young man, 33, almost 34 years old, from Rosenberg, Texas. Never in all of my life could I have imagined, or would I have imagined, the yellow brick road of blessings which have led to this extraordinary life that has been my journey. Getting here, though, has taken lots of hard work, determination, focus, perseverance, and the implementation and creation of boundaries and expectations. As is normal in most families, my family has had its fair share of dysfunction. And that's okay because they're mine. But I have to start with my mom and my grandma. You see, they are the lights of my life. And growing up watching their relationship and their dysfunction with each other has helped to shape me into the man that I am today. To put it bluntly, y'all thinks my life wouldn't even work for them, y'all. I thought about calling and I was like, nah, their love is the way it's gonna be, period, point blank. You see, at the age of 16 years old, my grandmother, the valedictorian, the smart one, the beautiful one, the talented one, she gave birth to my mom. And back in those days, if a teenage mother gave birth to a child, the child was usually sent to live with an older and distant relative. Such is the case with my mom. She was sent to live nearly 2 hours away. And so their relationship and that distance created the rift in their relationship. Nevertheless, I was on the receiving end of a whirlwind of love from my big mama. I could do no wrong in her eyes. You wouldn't want to do wrong if your grandmother was Medea to the 53rd power. Yeah. I had witnessed with my own eyes my grandmother shoot off a round of bullets from her .38 at her own sister in a fit of anger. Yeah, that same beautiful, kind, intelligent, smart woman, that evening I learned was not infallible. Her love and adoration for me, though, were very, very clear. And I was always sure that that love was coming from her heart. And I was also keenly aware that that was love that she had wanted to shower and show my mother, but did not have the ability to, conquer her own fears in order to do that. Her love and adoration for me came at a price, though. I was always made to choose, or felt like I had to choose between my grandmother and my mother. You know, she was always telling about, well, I bought you this, and I bought that, and I took you here, and I took you there, and I did this, and I did that. And all I kept imagining but didn't have the words to say at that young age, nor did I have the courage to say, was, who cares about who's done this or who's done that? Who cares who's taken me here or taken me there? Look at the man that I am. Look at who I'm becoming, and you should just both be proud of that. I mean, hello, come on, let's have some love here. Well, it just went on and on and on. And so their dysfunction with each other and the pressure they put on me basically to choose ultimately led me to creating my boundaries and expectations that I had with them. And in doing so, it led me to realize that only I could prevent forest fires. You know, I am responsible for the energies that enter into my sacred spaces. And so I put a stop to all the things that I knew weren't conducive to what I was trying to do. I was always sure, though, that both of them loved me. When was the last time that we chose someone else's love, or we chose their support, the encouragement of others above our own? You see, as empaths, we are constantly taking on the dysfunction and challenges of others, and they can outweigh who we are and sometimes envelop us, or worse yet, make us invisible. When was the last time we chose ourselves? When I chose myself in my life, I've realized that the self-love that I had liberated me, and it gave people around me permission to do the same thing. Gay, chubby, black, and you sing high. As far as I can remember, I have always been this chubby little kid who liked to dress and who sang really high. Or as they would say back in the day, you sing like a girl. And back then, there was a really fancy word for chubby. It was called husky. And I used to hate going to shop for husky clothes. It was the bane of my existence. I mean, all I was trying to do was be my fabulous, authentic self. Yes, I said fabulous. I mean, what other boy do you know would long for Western wear day so he could wear his long button-down shirt with his hat and his pants and a nice pair of boots? Clearly, I still like a nice pair of boots. And maybe, just maybe, that's why they made fun of me. But I digress. In all seriousness, though, I can still remember all the names that they called me because I remember how those names made me feel. Sometimes being called names was from the schoolyard bully, and sometimes it was even from my own family. This last Christmas, my sister and I were having a discussion at the table, and she said, "John, you remember that time?" I said, yeah, I remember. It was the one and only time that my sister called me a faggot. And that was the one and only time that I got in my car and acted as if I was going to run her over. I mean, we went around the whole city for like 15 minutes. And we finally got to the local Blockbuster. And I got out of my car and I said, "Don't you ever call me that ever in your life again." Now, in my fit of anger and my dysfunction, I think it was very clear about what I would not be called and the thing that I would answer to. You see, it's all too easy to answer to what other people call you. It's harder, though, to teach them who you are and what to call you. I've never forgotten those bullies, and I've never forgotten what being called those names and how they made me feel. Because I vowed that I would never make anybody feel that way with my art. I vowed that in my art, I would use it to uplift people and to bring joy. What names are we answering to? What names are we answering to? Sometimes people don't know where we're going, and that's okay. It's our job to keep the thing that has been the love that sparked this interest in us at the forefront of our mind and run toward that. Keep pressing toward the mark of the high calling. Two dysfunctional father figures. I mean, where do I begin? My mom and my dad, at the time of my birth, were separated. So already we were starting off wrong. You know, we weren't the picturesque family. Here we are having me born without my father by my mother's side. And naturally, not being around my dad, there were things that I missed out on in my life. But nonetheless, he was a part of my life, but I had what I like to call a weekend and holiday dad. He had always promised my sister and me that he would come to retrieve us. And just as sure as my name is John Thomas Holiday Jr., he would never show up. I can still remember peering through the blinds and looking out at cars, and as day turned into night, seeing the headlights pass by and wondering, well, is that my dad or is that my dad? Because just like me, he liked to change cars. So I'm looking like, well, is that him? And he would never show up. And I remember that after a series of several disappointments, I just began to hate my dad, and I had verbalized that to my mom. Now, of course, I really didn't mean it, but I surely felt that then. I was lucky, though, to be raised by my stepdad, although it's really hard to replace a biological parent. He really did try to show me examples of what he thought a man was, but those examples that he was showing me were examples that I did not glorify nor aspire to. You see, I can still remember the haze that seemed to follow my stepdad around. I mean, as a young kid, I can still remember that because he was always smoking weed. And that wasn't legal at the time I was growing up, so, everybody's gotten lucky now, but it wasn't legal. And so I just remember thinking, I don't aspire to do that. And to make it worse, it just seemed like every time I did something wrong. The way I left the house, or the way I didn't take out the trash, or the way I cleaned up the house, I didn't clean it up the right way. So I started to think that something was wrong with me, albeit sometimes I did leave the house kind of wrinkled. So I might have needed to be in trouble a little bit. But I digress. Things bubbled to the surface one night, and I had just finally had enough, so I pulled a knife on my stepdad. And in my moment of dysfunction, my mother stepped in and she said, "That's not your life. This is not who you are. We know where you're going. I know that you know where you're going. You don't need to be doing this." Thank God for my mom. Then there was a point where my stepdad went to prison for a year. And then that's where the shame came in. I thought to myself, well, here, now I am the family that has a dad or someone in it that's been to prison. Here I am. And so that was when I started to witness my mom. She worked just like a dog, 24 hours a day. I remember a week where she worked 3 days continuously, over and over again. Needless to say, we never missed a meal, and every bill was paid, as if both parents were working in the house. And from her, I learned perseverance. Thanks, Mama. And, thank you. In seeing both my dad and my stepdad, what I learned about them in those moments is that they couldn't be what they hadn't seen. But if that was the case for them, what was my fate? God always has a way of showing up, and show up he did. In school, I was lucky to have many male mentors, teachers, and Mr. William R. Adams of the Fort Bend Boys Choir of Texas, who were able to show me excellent examples of what men were and what they could do and how they were fathers. And that was all I needed. It was in that moment that I chose to not be what I had seen and to journey toward the thing I wanted to become. I'm so thankful that they were able to show me the other side of the coin. Who are we? What are we becoming? What are you journeying toward? My hope for us all is that we see that beautiful bright light and that beacon that may be different than anybody else, and we keep on running toward it, being more different and more unique. Telling myself lies. Out of all the things I had seen and all the dysfunction that I had been around, and because sometimes I had been admonished by my mom and my siblings for being too arrogant and too conceited, I began to tell myself lies that perpetuated the idea of why I wasn't worthy. Worthy of my intellect, worthy of my voice, or even worthy of wanting more for myself. And because of that lie that I was telling myself, those lies became deeply rooted fears that I'm just now overcoming. But what I've realized over the years is that it's okay to know that I'm worthy. And now, you see, I work to be too much. Now I work to be too much so that when you see me, your head is uplifted. Now I work to be too much so that my cup can run over. And that when my cup runs over, it runs over into your cup. And that when your cup runs over, it runs over into your cup. All sharing the most beautiful part of ourselves, devoid of ego, but filled with gratitude and love. Confronting my monsters. I cannot believe I've just shared a lot of this with you. But it's the true life Hollywood story of my life. And while it all hasn't been great, all the things that have made my life up, it's my race and it's my journey. And what I'm reminded of is that slow and steady win the race. And you know, those monsters that you have under your bed are just as real as the monsters under my bed. But what I realize is that the monsters are not culpable. You see, those big hairy monsters, they're not responsible for our lack. We have to choose to conquer our fears. I know that it's possible because I've seen it in my life and many other people's lives. And what I've learned, like I said about my dad, is that they couldn't be what they couldn't see. And at the moment, they were being the best people that they knew how to be. The same is true for my mom and my grandmother. They are being the best people that they know how to be. And what I know for sure is I have all of those components in me, but instead of using my components to be destructive, I use my components to be constructive. So, what are your monsters? And what are you doing about them? My hope for you is that you take a big running start and leap off of your bed and conquer those monsters, being the best mother, father, daughter, son, sister, brother, uncle, artist, CEO, or whoever you want to be. Thank you so much.
Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. There must be a God somewhere. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. So over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. Oh, there must be a God somewhere. There must be a God